Good day, everybody. My name is Dennis Collier, and I have a master's degree in kinesiology from Lakehead University. And while I was there, I was a member of the varsity track team, specifically specializing in the 60-meter sprints. Now, truth be told, I was not very good. I mean, I was good enough to be there. I did all the training, practicing, and competed, but just not terribly fast. But all that considered, I suppose I could do a fairly decent job of talking to you about the physiology and the training and the widespread application of sprinting towards pretty much every other sport that involves running fast. But probably we should get someone even better than me, a little bit better than me. How about if we got a gold medal Olympian to talk about sprinting? Sounds like a pretty good way to spend an hour and 25 minutes. But first, here is the bio of this person who's going to enlighten us about all things sprinting, Mr. Brendon Rodney.
Brendon Rodney has sprinted his way to 3 separate Olympics and won a medal every single time in the 4x100 meter relay. Bronze in 2016, silver in 2020, and in 2024 he became an Olympic gold medalist. Individually, Brendon is a 200 meter specialist. In 2016 he was the Canadian champion when he became one of the few people in human history to run a sub 20-second 200 meters, and only the second Canadian to ever do so. The man is also a scholar. He's got a master's degree in exercise science.
Brendon Rodney, please tell us where you were born and raised.
I was born in Etobicoke, Toronto, Ontario, and I was raised in basically Brampton and Etobicoke, between the two places.
Why sprinting?
You know what? It just ended up happening. I was playing basketball, I played soccer, and from those things, I was always fast. And, we had track and field, once we're not in basketball season or soccer season. And I just did it, and then I seen some guys, and I said, I must be faster than them. And then from there, I just became a sprinter.
And Brendon, I'm going to add one more question here to my usual set of 2 questions, because you got a third thing that we really got to get into here. Not only are you an Olympic gold medal level athlete, you got to tell us, Brendon, about your academic credentials as well. So let's start there and tell me exactly what the degree that you got, Master of Science, Exercise, something. You tell us the details.
All right, so I have a Bachelor of Science in Sports Science and Health Science from Long Island University, and then I have a Master of Science in Exercise Science with a concentration of sports nutrition, special populations, and strength and conditioning. So it's a lot.
I didn't even know that.
Yeah. So we did a lot of work with people in special populations. So like Special Olympics, we did people with different disorders.
Brendon, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I thought it was more like a physio background. It's more.
Well, so the work that we did basically a physio background. It's working with people with injuries in like Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, things like that. So working with them, trying to get them back their mobility, their movements, allowing them to still be able to participate in exercise. We did stuff with the Special Olympics because it was just one of our teachers just loved that. So our motor learning professor, that's what he was specialized in, working with people. Special Olympics is like autism, Down syndrome. We did a lot of work with them. We did stuff in the pool with, the elderly. So it really wasn't the sporting professionals. So they would still fit in a special population, but of course it was more of people with, disabilities, injuries and stuff like that. That's what was my main focus in college.
So, folks, you're hearing all this. You think we got the best people talking here? What a combination, Brendon. Unbelievable. And the last thing I'm going to get you to talk about, because you've had a pretty big year, man. You've had a pretty big year. Not only, I don't know how many months after, a few months after, I think, if I'm correct here, Brendon, you win the Olympic gold medal and then you get a big new job. So you got to tell us about GC Foster, the college that you're at now. First, I guess tell us what it is, and tell us what you're doing there. It all adds to the story of why this is the best possible guy to listen to about this topic.
All right. Well, so at first I used to teach anatomy and physiology to the students in doing their degree of physical education, as well as I taught like fitness methods and kinesiology, so kin. So it kind of all just fits in with what I do now. I'm a assistant athletic director at GC Foster College here, focused on sporting, the sport teams, sporting events that we host, ensuring that we set up, take down, event management, facility management, equipment management, and then, of course, compliance of the student athletes with their academics and athletics.
Unbelievable, man. Unbelievable. And the last thing before we move on, because we got to move on. We got a lot of other ground to cover here. But I don't think we mentioned, just in case people don't know, GC Foster located, if you can't tell, by the way, behind Brendon there. He's not in Toronto anymore, man. This is in Jamaica?
Yes.
Yeah, you can see all the palm trees. Folks, there's no palm trees out there, I tell you, at this moment. I don't know what the temperature here this morning is. So you're not missing all that stuff, I guess, Brendon.
Yeah, no, not at all. The cold is tough, but you know what? It's my training base, so it just ended up working out really well for me.
Yeah, like I said, you got an unbelievable background. So on that note, let's get into the meat of what we're going to talk about here this morning. Brendon, if you will, I got three ideas here, three parts we're going to talk about. First thing, we're going to talk about training. Okay, and we're going to do so with a specific focus on, let's say, you personally getting ready to compete in the Paris 2024 Olympics. I think this is interesting because you're a guy who's trying to do two different distances. So we'll talk a bit about the 200, a bit about the 100. We'll talk about getting ready to compete in which, by the way, was his third Olympics for these two distances. Then we'll do a couple of sit and watches. We'll do a sit and watch of Brendon running a 200. We got a video here. I couldn't find your PB, by the way, Brendon.
Which
PB
one of them?
1996 is his personal best, but we got one, I think it was 2014. Pretty fast, and you slowed up at the end. So anyway, we'll do a sit and watch of that, and he can break down some of the mechanics of that. And then just for fun, folks, we'll watch the race. Canada winning gold in the 4x100 in the Paris Olympics. So that's the plan. Brendon, sound good?
Yeah, that's great. I'm ready to go.
Okay, so getting ready for your third Olympics. By this point, you're a veteran of getting ready for the Olympics. Let's talk about what you personally were doing to get ready for Paris 2024. Maybe, Brendon, and I don't know what's the best place to start. You can correct me if I lead the question in the wrong direction. Feel free to interject.
No problem.
Let's backtrack from Paris. We'll go backwards in time.
Mm-hmm.
Was there an off season? Like, when did your off season begin? Like, getting ready for Paris. You obviously have a block. You have a training plan in place.
Mm-hmm.
I guess how far back in time before Paris would you say I'm in my off season now? And we'll start from there maybe talk about like what does the off season mean for someone like you?
Okay, so I mean, some of us would consider the off season as the rest time. I guess so. I'm assuming you're not talking about the rest before we start training. I'm thinking you're talking about the initial preparation phase or the general prep. So that would be our off season. That would October we started.
So October.
Yeah.
Off season. Like October 1. You say is now off season.
No. It's really a metric of from when you finish competing, and then you have a certain amount of weeks. So let's say you have 6 weeks off from training.
Yep.
So if I finish on the 15th or the 14th of September, then 6 weeks from there, wherever that drops me, is where I start back training, between 4 and 6 weeks.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So if you were just to basically summarize for someone, like what does the off season mean in terms of what are you doing in the off season? Is it nothing, or is it you're doing some types of stuff?
For that first 6 weeks, I don't really do much. Maybe the last 2 weeks I start to jog. I'll do some mileage. It's just some long runs. Yeah.
But it's basically rest.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay, so let's pick it up there then. The first, let's call it deliberate part of your training
Yeah.
If you can give us a breakdown, Brendon, of like just what it looks like in general, maybe like on a week, in
A
a
week
weekly
base?
picture.
Okay.
Yeah, like how much you on the track. Give us some of the details there.
Well, because I'm in Jamaica, we don't really use the track until maybe early January. So we're on the grass from day one. As we build into training, it's
And
not. Huh?
tell us why that is.
Well, I think it's just their philosophy. Yeah, everywhere is kind of different. When I was in college, we didn't have a track, so we had to use the grass. Here we have a track, but we use the grass. They say it's to prevent, injuries. But if in the science world and physio, change of surface is one of the reasons people get hurt. So we don't know. It's
Interesting.
yeah, it's really. Um, can I use words like proprioception?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
Okay.
Brendon, these students, man, these are high level students we're talking
Okay,
to.
all right. So, part of the grass training, I think, is more about proprioception and knowing the awareness of where your body is. Because of course, we try to get as an even surface as possible, but it's not that even. So, you step on something, your ankle moves this way. You build strength, intrinsic muscles working to, align the body back, get it back in the right way. So I think it kind of just a general preparation of working muscles that you probably won't work if you use the hard surface of the track.
So what you said, I'm already interested. So when you said working on the grass, my thought was softer surface, because folks, I guess the forces these sprinters impact into the track, they're astronomical, and my thought was the more time. Sometimes you deliberately stay off the track to give your body a break, but you brought up a very interesting point. The point being, there's a body of literature that might say the changing of the surface might actually cause you more injury.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And
So
a lot of people read that and see it, like, especially when you talk about tendon injuries and overuse injuries, they say, change of surface is one of the main reasons why you might have a Achilles tendon injury or, something like that.
Interesting. Okay, let's talk about specifics of what you're up to in terms of however's easiest for you to describe it, Brendon. So week by week, days of the week, like what you might be doing if you know, and what specifically you're doing. And as you talk, we might get into some of the details of trying to navigate to be ready to run a 200 and ready to run a 100 at the same event.
All right. So days of the week, general prep in this time of the year early. So we do a lot of body weight stuff, such as like lunges, squats, and technique stuff. So those are like our first day of training is just about drills and technique, reinforcing the correct technique, how you're going to apply force to the track, how you're going to push off, what you need to do in order to run the fastest but use the least amount of energy. We have 2 days a week where we do aerobic work. That's just getting our cardio back, getting back fit. And we train.
And when when you say aerobic, you're like, let's give a bit of a definition. Like how many minutes you're talking would be aerobic for you? Because he's not running a marathon.
No,
you're not doing that. But like, how long, or how in terms of meters or in terms of time would your aerobic work be?
all right, so we would probably do mileage at first, with that being 1 mile, 2 miles, depending on the events we're training for. So as a sprinter, a short 100-meter person, maybe do 1 mile versus the quarter milers with 400-meter people. They may do 3 miles. And that's just twice a week. Along with that, we may call it aerobic, but it's really not aerobic.
It's aerobic for a sprinter.
Yeah, yeah. So we do like fartlek runs, so like 30 seconds on, 30 seconds off, kind of thing for 15 minutes.
Okay, during this time, let me ask you this first, actually, because you mentioned technique, and I was gonna make a point to mention, although like you're training for the Olympics, I think, Brendon, what you're doing, and I'm not just saying this to make you feel good about your sport, but sprinting, I've always said, I call it a foundational sport for all athletes. That would be my humble opinion. The rationale being, it's simply running fast. Now you tell me any sport where you have to run fast, this is like having a base, I think, Brendon, of sprinting is very, very beneficial as a foundational level. If I could pick, well, sprinting is one of two. but two sports to get all. If you're trying to create the perfect athlete and train him to do something, I teach him to sprint. Not only the techniques, but just what sprinting does to the body.
Yeah. And you know what? For me, I beg to differ because
Okay, go on.
I believe that sprinting is so unilateral that it doesn't teach the premise or the concepts of being an athlete, which requires coordination, balance, agility, all of those things that make up an actual athlete.
So my other one, just piggybacking on what you said there.
Yeah.
My second one would be gymnastics. So that covers kind of the things you're talking about.
Yeah.
But anyway,
I do say gymnasts make great athletes because they have like holistic strength, core strength. They have great balance. They have their ability to just know where their body is at all times. Their flexibility is amazing. All of those things.
And just as a little bit of a foreshadowing here, another reason, Brendon, why you might not, although I'm going to stand by what I said, but another reason why you might, or the, shall we say, teaching of sprinting might be lessened, the value of it might be lessened. We'll get into this before we're done this little section, and I think you and I will have a little bit of a chat about the role of genetics in sprinting. Just we don't have much time, but I got to touch on that issue as well. But anyway, let's get back to what you were doing to get ready for the 2024 Paris Games. The sprinting techniques was what you just described.
Yeah.
Now, in this block of training, we didn't mention yet, Brendon, anything. Let's talk about the weight room. Are you guys in the weight room? What kind of stuff are you doing if you are in the weight room at this point?
So usually we don't start off in the weight room. We do like maybe 4 weeks or 6 weeks before we go in the weight room because we want to, work on our flexibility, our fitness, and things like that, core strength, because they do, of course, help. Once we do get into the weight room, our lifts are like, I want to say we do a lot of lower body stuff. So, but the compound lifts, squats, cleans, lunges, deadlifts, do a lot of deadlifts and a lot of cleans. So those are big things. And then at first we start off with a lot of reps, our high volume. So 4 times 10, 4 times 12, cleans, 4 times 4, things like that. So we're building capacity. That's the goal, right? In the early season, capacity to be able to do the work later on down the line.
Okay, so let's keep progressing then. So if the weight stuff comes a little bit later, you say, let's talk about what is happening on the track in terms of the training, simultaneous with when you're in the weight room. How do you marry those two together? What would a schedule look like incorporating the stuff on the track?
All right, so for us, it's first, our Mondays would be like a acceleration speed development day. The Tuesdays would be our anaerobic workouts, our lactic workouts, with them being 400s, repeats, 300s, whatever, stepping down. And then in the evening, we come back and go into the weight room, doing cleans, squats, things like that. We have a big emphasis on our cleans. But me personally, of course, because this is what I went to school for, I believe that if you can do a good deadlift, do a good front squat, and sometimes back squat, but those two. And if you can pull the bar really well, your cleans will improve. But it's hard to improve your cleans if you don't have the other things around it. But our focus is big on cleans.
Yeah, you're preaching to the choir on that one. We had earlier we had Christine Girard, Canada's first ever Olympic gold medalist in weightlifting, and I think that's another sport that is very applicable to a lot of different sports.
Yeah,
because it's power, Brendon? It's just power.
Big.
Now let me ask you one other thing. You mentioned when you were just describing there. I'm trying to pick out every word you're saying here. When you're talking about the track, the highest distance I heard you say was a 400.
That's not the highest distance, but we start at 6 for the sprinters. 600, yeah.
Even if, what if you're a 100 specialist? Does that even exist anymore? Maybe, is everyone doing it?
It does. No, everybody doesn't do it at 600s, but the principles of training and the models that the Jamaicans use are highly different from what we would use in maybe North America. So they are very long to short oriented, and where as in like North America, short to long. So you come in and from day one you're really hitting it hard, going fast, and then you start to do your longer stuff as you're getting fit in North America. Whereas we start with the longer stuff and we build down, we step down to the shorter things here.
That's interesting too. I didn't know that. It's hard to argue with the Jamaican way of doing it.
You know what? A lot of people would say that because of their success. But if you look at the Americans, and the success that they have, and it's not just American athletes they have success with, then you can argue it that if you put 500 athletes in the American way versus 500 athletes in the Jamaican way, who's going to produce more?
What do you think?
What do I think? It's tough because you don't have the numbers, but personally, I think like especially now in these times, I think the shorter way will be better. Oh, before Charlie Francis, who was one of the great sprint coaches, he was a long to short guy, and most people have followed that way. But I think the athletes are built different now; they're developed different, their mindsets are different, and we'll get into that, I guess, when we talk about genetics. When you look at the bigger guys like the Linford Christies, and you can even look through Ben Johnson's, Donovan. They're all bigger guys compared to
More
the guys.
muscular.
Yeah, compared to the guys now who are, dominating the sprints.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, seemingly a few years ago, I'm just going through my head, more muscular types of physiques maybe at the start of the 100.
Yeah.
We are going to get there. There's so much to talk about. We got to talk about the genetics. The last thing, let's talk about the training. Let's keep going here with training because we haven't got. Okay, let's progress down the road, and whatever time window is most appropriate for you to talk about it. So the Olympics are now approaching. Like the last thing you do, let's call it quality training that you get before the Olympics, and maybe from there talk about it going into a taper before the games. So now we're up to Brendon getting the last few things you do to get ready.
All right. So for me, I run the 100 and the 200. So I have days. So on a Monday I'll do block session. On a Tuesday I might do 200 work, or vice versa. So Tuesday or Thursday I might do 200 work, and a 200 work would be like 250, 180, 150, or 250 repeats. So I have that. That's my longer stuff. And then on a 100 day, I'd have like 80 or 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, something like that. Something on the straightaway. And I have to mix between them. Personally, I think the faster I am on the straightaway, the easier the 200 stuff is for me. And based on reading and stuff like that, my logic makes sense.
Yeah.
You can't endure a speed that you don't have. So speed endurance.
Speed endurance, and we're going to have a look at that when we see you come out of the turn of the 200. We're going to watch it live in action.
Yeah.
All right, let's just jump into the genetics. So we got to talk about so much stuff here. I guess I could give you, I could let you take over maybe rather than try to put any words in there. But I guess I'd preface it by saying. There is a school of thought that a few genes are found more often in sprinters than non-sprinters. Actually, it just came to my mind. One of them, Brendon, is ACE, angiotensin converting enzyme. And that's the name of this podcast. I didn't realize that. It's another acronym. Anyway, but that's not the most famous one. ACTN3 would probably have the most amount of literature linking it. If you have a certain variant of this gene, you might be a good sprinter. And this is often found in individuals of West African descent, which a big population of Jamaica is of that descent. I don't know if there's studies about how many Jamaicans are walking around with this gene, but it's just, I guess it's the kind of thing, Brendon, if you look at it from 30,000 feet, and you say, okay, here's this island of 3 million people, and they're like, what the hell is going on down there? It makes you kind of go, what? Is there something happening here? Maybe it's a genetic thing, or maybe it's a culture thing. Maybe it's a training thing. Anyway, I've said enough about it. Because you're right in the midst of all of this. What's your take on the whole issue of the role of genetics in sprinters?
Genetics is a big thing. I think without some type of that genetic makeup, you're unable to make it to that world class level. A big thing in, I want to say, Jamaican sprinting is their culture. Everybody sprints. Everybody runs. Everybody does some kind of track and field related event from day one. So that helps. So I believe that there is a lot of people in this world that may have the genetic makeup to be a world class sprinter, but they don't have the exposure to the sport in the sense that to have that love to want to progress to be a world class sprinter. It's just like maybe people in Jamaica have the ability to be in the NHL, but they're not exposed to it, kind of thing. And where, if you look at, other than Canada and the US, the next biggest place is Russia, cold place, so when it comes to hockey. So I think culturally is going to be a big thing. And then genetics, of course. Genetics is what's going to put you into that top 1%.
Sure.
And allow you to.
And that's why when we were talking about the kids and the pros and the cons of training kids to be sprinters, this is what I was going to get. I think, like you said, I agree 100%. You can train someone with the highest quality training possible. You can get every nutrition correct. You can do everything properly. But there's a big genetic component of this sport, and that person won't reach, as you say, the highest possible level. They can probably get faster, Brendon, right?
1,000%.
But not be
so
on the Olympic podium.
No. Well, see, and another thing is time. So a lot of coaches, a lot of people don't have the time to wait. Because if you look at, there's this athlete named Su Bingtan. I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing his name, but he's Chinese.
It's Chinese.
Yes.
Yeah.
Sprint. And
the first Chinese guy to make the.
And he's ran 9:85 or something like that. He has the Asian record. And his progression was over years, 9, 10, 11 years. He had to work on that to get to where he was. So you can tell that it's not all genetics. Of course, he has some genetic makeup to allow him to push his body to that level, but a lot of it was training. But his coach really just coached him and was focused on him. And they broke down the race like meter by meter and did everything possible. Like he understood his weaknesses. He worked on those and all of those things. And he did a whole podcast on it, on how he got him to that level.
I did not know that.
Yeah.
That sounds interesting.
Yeah, it is. I haven't watched it all, but like even just the snippets that you get from it and things that you understand is just that it was over years. And then like when he did it, he was basically at the age of retiring, so it's a lot harder for you to say, especially in North America where your livelihood is dependent on performance. It's harder to say that you want to go that route if you're not genetically, predisposed to being a sprinter.
Interesting. The last thing I'm going to get you to talk about, because you brought it up, and now you got me interested, but you're alluding to some of the differences in the sprinters of yesteryear, the Linford Christies, the Ben Johnsons, these guys that you'd look at them and they were physically jacked, and that's less so today.
Yeah.
So what's going on there, do you think?
I just think, evolution, for the lack of better words, but that's really what's happening. People are just evolving. Linford Christie and Ben Johnsons weren't the greatest of 200 runners. They didn't want to run it. Even Donovan, he didn't really want to run it. I mean, I guess they could run a one-off fast time, but consistently week in, week out, they're not going to run the 100 like Andre DeGrasse, Noah, me, even Fred Curley, like these guys go out there and run 100 meter, 200 meter week in, week out, and it's nothing to them.
Yeah.
It's a lot harder
Did
training.
we're going to get into this now in 1 second. Did Bolt cause some of that? I mean, you can divide sprinting into pre-Bolt and post-Bolt, but when he does the double, now I know guys had done it before historically, but did that kind of open up people's eyes? Hey, maybe I could be 100 and a 200.
Well, even I think he definitely opened up the eyes, and he made people say, like, if this is what you want to do to be great, this is what you got to do. But even pre-Bolt, you still had Otto Bolden, Maurice Green, even Tyson Gay before Bolt did it. Justin Gatlin before Bolt did it. So some of the greats, I'm not taking away from anybody who didn't run great 200s, but some of the greatest sprinters of all time, like if you look in the top 5 greatest sprinters based on their times, all of them have sub 20 personal best going 200.
In the 200.
Yeah, so Gatlin, Johan, Asafa, Gay, and of course Usain Bolt.
Well, on that note, Bolt is a good segue. We're going to start talking about the 200 now. Okay. Would you say you're a specialist in the 200? Is that fair?
Yeah, I was. I really don't want to be, though. Like I said, I think to be one of the great
Why
spinners,
not? Why don't you want to be?
because to be one of the great, you got to be able to do both, and you got to be able to do both at a high level.
Are you saying, Brendon, the 200 is not as sexy as the 100? Is that what I'm
Oh,
hearing?
by far. Training's harder. It's more wear and tear on your
Oh,
body.
yeah. Way more painful
Yeah.
and less glamorous. But let's just go back to that again, because you're joking, but not really joking.
No, it's true.
The reason why you said you tried to run the 100, but your, dare I say, Brendon, genetics pulled you to being better at the 200?
Yeah, well,
Would you say that?
yeah, I think genetically, it was easier for people to get me to run fast in the 200 than it was 100. But I also think that, it's the same thing with the time. If you put in the time and the effort, and then part of it was my fault too, because I realized what helped me be a great 200 runner can also help me do well in the 100. And I didn't, especially
So
in
what was that?
college, just the weight room.
Wait.
I wasn't great in the weight room until my last year in college. And that's because I had somebody who I used to, even though you're in Division 1, you have your strength and conditioning coach, but I had a personal one outside of school. And he was just on my ass to do things diligently. When I had to go with the group, I could go to the weight room and do 2 exercises, bullshit them, sorry for my language, and then leave. Whereas with that person, I did every exercise how he wanted it, the right way, every rep. And it made a big difference.
Fascinating. All right, we got to change topic. Brendon, I could talk to you all day, man. But all right, let's call this part 2. We're going to break down to 200, even though the guy is a begrudging 200-meter specialist. One of the fastest 200 human beings that ever lived, folks. There's only a few hundred people that have run a sub 20-second 200. We have one here. How many?
Less than 100.
Less than.
Yeah.
Anyway, be proud, man. Anyway, all right, so we're going to start talking about the 200, and we talked about Bolt. Now, maybe this is correct, because I looked this up before, and this is why I was saying pre-Bolt and post-Bolt. I read somewhere that the number of sub-20-second times in the 200 have doubled, something
Since
like that.
Bolt, yeah.
Yeah. Is that true? That's true.
Yeah,
Right?
it's true.
Yeah. So you can kind of divide it into 2 areas in that way, at least. So I guess the moral of that story, they're getting faster and faster in the 200. But like I said, we have a guy here who's run under 20, and there's not very many human beings in the history of planet Earth that have done that. And by the way, just for the sake of, this is easy to conceptualize, I think, for students, and they're trying to put track into the classroom, and because Brendon, this is why I love track. I always say it is, if you're interested in science and physiology, track and field, Brendon, it is like the physical manifestation of science in a competitive arena. You get the guys on the track, okay, this is the distance, go. Let's see who can get there.
Yeah.
To me, that's why it's so fascinating. And 200 meter, if you're under 20 seconds, this is all-time fantastic territory. And the world record, 1919, easy number to remember, and that was by your buddy there. So let's talk about the 200. We're gonna do a sit and watch, Brendon. All right. So let's just set it up here. This is the 2023 Worlds, I think. Yeah, the 2023 Worlds. This is just the heat. So we're gonna do, Brent. This is for educational purposes, right? We're using this video for. You have students. I have students. This is all education. While we're watching stuff, get ready here. Just talk about maybe how this is more of a finesse event than the 100. Would you agree with that? It's more finesse, Brendon. Yeah. Oh, let's keep going.
It is.
Whatever.
More finesse. I think it's who can. Yeah, definitely. I think who can exert the most speed, but so who can just exert the most speed, but by staying the most relaxed throughout the race. It's almost a little bit like the 400, but it requires a little bit more aggression.
A little bit more aggression than the 400.
Yeah.
But not as much as the 100.
No.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. So here we are. This is you. Oh, by the way, you're in lane 8, I think, in this one. So when we see the race develop here, we're going to have not on the screen to the extreme left of the screen. Brendon's in the lane over from that, so it's easy to see. But this is you here getting ready, and I'm going to do my best to because I'm in control of the buttons. Unfortunately, it'd be better if you were. Maybe you could stop it in places where you think is better. But I got a general idea, so we're going to stop it in a few places. And first, we're going to talk about the start. So you're getting ready to start here. And by the way, Brendon is a different. You're 6'4", is that right?
Yeah.
That makes a difference in the technique you're going to use in the start. You're tall for a sprinter. Is that fair enough?
Yeah. But the technique that I actually use, I'm probably a lot tighter in my blocks than a lot of the tall guys. For me personally, it allows me to push better. So I'm not the strongest guy, so I have to maximize on everything that I do in terms of how well I push, how much force I'm putting into the ground without getting myself too tired.
As we see you here getting ready, elaborate a little bit further, Brendon. What kind of stuff's going on in your head at this moment? You're getting ready to compete on the world stage. What's going through your head?
Usually if I go to a meet and I'm only running one event, this is my first race, I'm probably a lot more nervous. But because I ran the 100 in this specific championship, this would have been my third or fourth time on the track already. So I was just kind of like, all right, let's get through this so I can go back to my room, get some rest, just do what I'm told. And a lot of the thing is, it's not just about winning a race. So there's kind of like advancement formulas, and, the person who wins the race gets a preferred lane in the next one. So things like that kind of were more what I was focused on.
Here's another question, technical question. Where are you pointing your blocks, Brendon? I know some guys, they point them straight ahead. Some guys, like you're pointing into the turn.
Yeah.
The positioning of what do you do?
I point mine into the turn because that thing called centrifugal force. You try to run as straight as possible on the curve. So it's like you're still trying to make her a straight line. So if you, from where we start to the top of the turn, if you can run it in a straight line, the force is going to pull you into the rest of the turn, which will keep you going around. I know, just what they call a slingshot. It's like a feeling where you spin something, you let it go, and it just flies.
Speaking of flying, let's watch here. We're gonna watch maybe the first, 3-4 seconds, and then you tell us, Brendon, what happened. Okay, what's going on? Whatever you think is interesting biomechanically. What are you thinking? What do sprinters think? So here's the start of the race, folks, and we're gonna watch maybe the first 3-4 seconds. Is that good? Is 3-4 seconds?
Yeah, that's perfect.
Okay, so he's getting ready. Brendon's on the second lane from your left is Brendon. Here he goes. All right, so that was about 3 or 4 seconds.
All right, so for me,
you go from a stationary to there. What's going on?
You know what? It's just about being able to push the track away from you and generate force. So for the first, I want to say that's about 30 meters, 3-4 seconds, 30 meters. our goal is just to push as hard as we can, and then it's free energy. So, the energy systems that you use, for the 6 seconds is ATP, creatine, phosphate. So, that energy you'll always have at the beginning of the race, and it's free energy. So use it, because if you don't use it, you lose it, basically, and you move into a new energy system. So it's just about how hard you push to get that first 30 meters out.
And you're going, this is shall we call it a maximal effort?
Yeah. You're pushing. This first 30 meters is maximal.
Hard as you can possibly explode.
Yeah.
Talk a bit about, Brendon, also is, we didn't talk too much about it, the reaction time. Because that's something you guys work on in your training, like to get a good reaction time off the blocks. What is that all about, getting a good reaction time from the gun to the push?
It's really about just getting that first jump, the every 100th or every 10th, every 1,000th of a second basically counts. And it may seem like a little minute here, but if you take 1,000th and then a 10th and then another 10th, eventually you'll drop a second, because you have 200 meters. So if you take a 10th every second, every 10 meters, or 1,000 here, a 10th there, 5/10ths, whatever it may be, eventually it'll add up to, being seconds, and every second counts in track and field.
100%. Let's talk about, maybe if I want to talk about when, Brendon, you begin coming up. So obviously you're in a crouch position to start at 200 or 100 or 400, but you don't run that way.
No.
You gotta gradually bring your body up. I'm just gonna press it if I can get a better shot here in 1 second. This is Brendon. Again, he's not the guy closest to the screen. He's the second lane over. You're not quite 90 degrees. What would you say? Is that 90 degrees? Have you gotten to 90 degrees by this point?
I'm almost there. I'm almost fully up. But what it is you're able to push the ground horizontally better from this position than from this position, and that's how you build speed.
Sorry, I meant to talk from what position to what position. You talked about the horizontal push.
Yeah, so we're in. This would be like maybe 45 degrees. Let's say 45-degree position will allow you to put force into the track, or push horizontally, better than if you're at a 90-degree position where you're just pushing force vertically.
Gotcha. That makes, if you think about it, that makes sense from the point of view of physics. And putting force into the track, I know, is a term that sprinters use very, very often. That's really one of the big keys, would you say, Brendon, to slam, to put as much force as you can with every foot strike into the track? Would you say that's...
So the key to sprinting... Okay, all right. Let's break it down. We're going to break it down. We're going to talk about the force.
That's why we're here.
The first 30 meters is putting as much force into the ground. So your these things called ground contact times, or how long you stay on the ground, is going to be longer. When you're in the upright position at the 90 degree and you're putting vertical force, it's the amount of vertical force that you can put into the track in the least amount of time. So your ground contact times are much faster.
There you go. Interesting. And I'll tell you another thing. I saw it when I was watching someone's training videos, talking about, you said in the first 30, ground contact times are longer.
Yes.
Okay. So I heard, you can tell me if this makes any sense, the start, you can hear, Brendon, shoes kind of scraping even off the track, because they're trying to prolong the contact time with the ground in this first 30 meters of the race. Prolong ground contact time during this portion.
Yeah. That's a lot of people do that, and they teach it because it also allows them to have low heel recovery. So, from point A to point B, the quickest time, straight line. So the lower you keep it to the ground, the shorter the time is to recover, or to get your next step on the track. But of course, then drag is also something that works against you. So, you have to find a fine median between that.
Okay. All right, we're gonna move into a different phase of the race here. Anything else you want to say here? So we've seen a start. We've seen about the first 3 seconds.
Yeah.
We talked about how you're coming up.
Yeah. So now we're just gonna transition into the top part of the current turn, and swinging off and staying as relaxed as possible. So running off the turn, and then
So let's watch the turn, and you can talk about navigating the turn. I'll pause it after you come out of the turn.
All right, no problem.
And then you and I will talk about the home stretch, we'll call it. So I'm going to start it up again, and now we're just going to, you feel free to talk as we're watching here, and I'll pause it again, Brendon, after the turn is finished, give or take. Because, again, for non-track people, you might not, like, navigating the turn is a big frigging deal in a 200 or as opposed to 100 where you just blast off straight away. So this is what I was talking about, the finesse of it all, navigating the turn. We'll watch Brendon navigate the turn. I'm going to pause it when he comes out, and Brendon, you can take it away, whatever we're watching here as you come out of the turn. It's going to be pretty easy to see who Brendon is soon because he's going to be the guy way in front. Here we go. Let's watch.
So we get around the corner, and we just stay close to the line. And right here, we're just going to run off. And get as tall, just get as tall as we can, and just stay relaxed. So you're not fighting your body. I guess it's basically physics now. Object in motion stays in motion. Object at rest stays at rest. So as long as you are not, unless a force is acting against the opponent, So if you put force to it to get it to move, or you put force to get it to stop, those are the times it will stop. So as long as you stay as relaxed as you can, you're not gonna cause your body to stop or break. So you just want to keep doing the same things and just staying as tall and relaxed as possible. So this is.
No, I was just going to say, I find it interesting, folks. It's almost like, Brendon, a juxtaposition. What you're saying is true, of course, and no doubt, but you're talking about staying relaxed when all these men here are running. They're moving at incredible speeds, all of them. Mm-hmm. So you would think, perhaps, I got to be forcing, I got to be tense, I got to be doing this and that. But as we watched you navigate this turn, this very technical thing about racing a 200-meter race, the word you repeated very often was, stay relaxed.
I like you. So if I teach a class right now, we're talking about the movement and what's happening. And somebody asked me, like, how do you stay relaxed? I tell them, if you were to flex your bicep and then try to punch somebody, how much force could you put? But if you relax your bicep and then try to punch, you'd be able to put a lot more force.
It's a good analogy. Okay, so we just watched him navigate the curve. We're gonna watch coming down the home stretch. Again, I'm just gonna start playing here, Brendon, and you can again take us through what's going on here, and then because what you're going to see, folks, it's going to be visibly obvious, I think at least, that you're not going at some point as hard as you can anymore. Mm-hmm. And you got to talk to us about that, because that's a component of running high-level track and field. You told us this is your second time on the track this day. Is that right?
No, not this day, but in the championship. So it's probably my third or fourth time, actually.
Okay. So anyway, you're trying to. You don't need, especially when you're this far in front, you don't need to have a maximal effort. In fact, it might be detrimental because you might pull something. God knows what might happen. So anyway, I'm going to start it here. Now we're on a straightaway, and we're gonna watch him, and Brendon can talk about what's going on, the techniques, whatever comes to your mind, Brendon, when you watch yourself win this heat. As the YouTube channel says, easily. No, it says cruises, sorry. Cruises to victory in this heat. There we go. I'll start it up. So it's a bit more of a turn. And now we see, you're on cruise control there.
Yeah, so basically what happens
What do we see? What's going on there?
I just straighten up onto the turn, come around and just get tall, and just, get my body up and run controlled. For me, it's about controlling the race, being in front, basically asserting a dominance on the race, and then, conserving energy. So we get to 150 meters, we do a check, see where everybody's at. That top three advance. Top number one is going to get a better lane than everybody else. So you want to control that first place position if you can. So that's really was the goal, to get out there, go win the heat, but do it with the least amount of energy, because your body does feel, regardless of if you run at 5% or 500%, your body's going to feel that you ran. So the more energy you conserve, the better it is for you for the next day and your nervous system, especially when you get older.
Yeah, tell me about it. and And by the way, folks, 2014, and the man is talking about conserving energy, but it's still a 2014 time in a 200. Just for the sake of Brendon, because this is interesting physiologically too. For those that are unaware, tell us about how a track meet is set up, the multiple heats, and how much time maybe you have between one heat and another, and ultimately, let's say, the gold medal race.
So for the 100 meters, it would be the heats on, let's say, what's today? Today's Monday? Monday night.
Yep.
And then you'd come back 24 hours later and run the semifinals. And then after the semifinals, you have 90 minutes until the finals. That's for the 100
90
meters.
minutes.
Yeah, somewhere between 90 and 120 minutes, depending. Some meets kind of adjust it. They might give you 2 hours. Some they give you an hour and a half.
Brendon, I got to interrupt you and ask you, because my students will kill me if I don't ask you. In that shorter window, we haven't even talked about nutrition because we only have so much time. Do these athletes, is it a big concern for them to refuel between, or is it not?
It is, of course. Glycogen stores, getting energy back to the muscles, refueling. And some people even put protein in their body, although protein does take longer to break down. It's still about recovery. Getting yourself rehydrated, re-energized, that's definitely big.
And I might add, just to say, even though, like, say you're talking about 100, so you're running, it's like 10 seconds worth of activity. It's amazing, actually, how much glycogen you can deplete in a short amount of time of a fairly maximal effort, hard effort like that.
Yeah.
It does not take long to make a significant dent in your glycogen stores. So that'll be our nutrition talk, Brendon, because we only have so much time, and we're going to progress here in the half hour or so that we have left. We're going to move into part 3. We're going to talk about the 4x100 meter race at the Paris Olympics. And Brendon, maybe I could ask the viewers as we get ready to watch this video, who is interested in seeing 4 Canadian dudes kick the world's ass? Is anybody? But scientifically, Brendon, it's going to be a scientific ass kicking. We're going to break it down for the purposes of education and science and students. But let's call it what it is. It's 4 Canadian dudes putting a whooping on the world. Okay, so Brendon, we're going to watch you guys come out. We got a Canadian flag here and everything. Here we go. What do you guys think in walking out here?
You know what? We're just here to execute the race, and I mean, once we do our best, then that's all that matters, really.
All right, but listen, I'm trying to be a bit of a storyteller here, so I'm going to tell you a bit of the story. And Brendon, you're not expected to win? Maybe you guys think you can win, but I don't think the world is expecting you to win. Now, you did win just to give the whole story, Canada is the world champs in this event from 2 years ago.
Yeah.
But the USA are the current world champs. Do you guys think you can win this race at this moment?
Yeah. You know what? We do. And it's because we have a great lane draw. And it's great because of me, one, for being tall, and Aaron is also really tall. So the corners are wider for us, and it's easier for us to navigate the corners, rather than being on the insides. As well as Jerome is also tall, and he doesn't accelerate that well. So accelerating on the straight allows him to get to top speed faster, easier than him being on a turn on the second leg.
So you just answered one of my questions. I thought it was going to be a great question. Apparently, it's not even a good question. I was going to ask you about the lane draw, and I was going to ask you, was it an advantage or a disadvantage? Because you guys are on lane 9, right, Brendon?
Yeah.
So now you're in the farthest one. We just watched the video of you guys. You were in not quite the farthest, but almost the farthest. Now you're in the farthest lane, and you're running blind, they say. But you say it's an advantage.
It was an advantage. The only disadvantage is that we don't see anybody in front of us. But, other than that, everything else was advantageous to us.
All right, here we go. We'll pause it after each baton toss. Or, baton pass, sorry.
Yeah. If we're tossing it, it's not good.
Well, again, at the risk of giving a spoiler, tossing is what the USA does here. Speaking of which, this is not a. Like I said, we're men of science, Brendon. You and I.
Yeah.
We don't get into the gossip and all the nonsense. However, but you know what? This could be sports psychology, Brendon. Okay, this could be sports psychology. Before this race, and I'm not going to mention anything else, but you can look it up if you like. Viewers can look it up. One of your opponents, you know what I'm going to say. One of your opponents had some like trash talk about Canada. Canada who?
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about? Does that factor in? Do you guys do you give a crap about that, or does it actually motivate you to do better when something like that happens? What's the sports psychology behind that, Brendon?
You know what? You think about it. You definitely think about it when it happened. At this day, that wasn't on our minds. We probably didn't even remember it was said. And when our competitor said it, he probably didn't remember it. He said it on this day either. So it's really a battle between us, like always. We see them in the call room. They're not talking to us. I'm trying to joke with them. But at the end of the day, you know, we're all there to win. So, yeah, I'm going to joke with you, but I'm going to kick your butt on the track kind of thing.
There you go.
Yeah.
And that's why we're here, to watch, as I say, 4 Canadian dudes kick some butt. Before we get into that, let me just, so much I could mention here. Parallels to other sports, Brendon. Even though you might think it's just racing, it's just running. You run as fast as you can, that's it. That's not just it. And I think there's, like, put it this way, in the sport, let's say hockey or basketball, like people, they put a lot, Brendon, of thought into the lineup. You know, like who's playing on whose line in the sport of hockey or basketball, what 5 guys you're going to put out there, who works well with who. And you think, well, it's just running, just run. But it's not, though. So Team Canada here, you guys have been running together for a long time, in the same order, right?
Yeah.
With a few substitutions, small here and there. But when was it you started running together?
2015.
2015. So this is almost a decade, for goodness sake, of running basically the same guys. The last Olympics correct me if I'm wrong, it was the same 4.
No, it was
time, right?
3 of us. So me, Aaron, and
Okay.
Andre have been running together since 2015. But the lineups change. We get different guys, 1 and 2. So we had Akeem Haynes in 2016. We had Jerome in 2020 and 2024.
Do you always run the third leg?
Yeah, I've always run the third leg, but our first leg has changed and our anchor legs have always changed. Our second legs, every other leg has changed except my leg.
There you go. So a decade of running the same leg. Practice makes perfect. Anyway, let's start watching it. We'll go leg by leg. So let's start off here. Again, you can tell us what's happening here. We'll just run it through. I'll pause it after Jerome gets the baton. You tell us what's happening here as we ready, Brendon. Let's start the race. Let's see if Canada can, as I call it, scientifically kick some of the world's ass. Here we go.
So this is Aaron. He gets a good start, gets a good jump. He's running a turn. You can see that he's opening up the gap on lane 8. And he's getting out. You see Jerome accelerating. All right. So you're going to pause
Jerome's
there.
got the baton.
Yeah, he got the baton.
So Aaron ran a great first leg, right?
Yeah, for the most part. Because I'm only focused on them, I don't know who got the baton before or after them. You see, I want to say that's Italy in lane 1. Great Britain, it looks like they have the stick as well. With Aaron, though, he missed Jerome's hand, I think once or twice before getting the stick off. Yeah.
Okay.
So that slowed us up a little bit, but it's not something you would see in real time because you're not looking for those minute details.
Gotcha. Now, here's another question, because this is the sport unfolding. And again, you could talk about who's favored and whatnot, whether it be 4x100-meter relay or any other sport. You got to play the game. And probably the favorites here at this point screw up the pass, and the USA is out by this point. You're standing here ready to go. And this is like, okay, you're going to get the baton in 20 seconds or less. Do you know at this point, Brendon, that the USA are out?
No.
You don't know. You're focused on your own thing.
Yeah, not at all. I don't even know who has a stick other than my guys. Like, you can see, but you don't see. Because if your focus is on your lane, your teammate, your marker to move.
You're in your own head, basically.
Yeah.
Which is probably a good place to be. All right, let's keep going here. So this is Jerome. He's got the stick.
Yeah.
Off he goes.
Yeah. So Jerome's running a great backstretch. You can see the lead kind of opening, but the race doesn't really unfold until third leg. And then there's me getting the stick.
Now, you said the race did not unfold into the third leg. Is that 'cause it didn't happen until you get it?
No, you know what? How they designed the tracks, the stagger really shows at the end of the race. So third leg is really where you see who's in front and who's not in front, kind of thing. So that's why I say the race doesn't really unfold until the third leg. But also because I'm running it.
All right. So let's dig a bit deeper here. Let's dive into this. So now, how was the pass, by the way?
It was a good pass. The goal of each pass is to not slow the baton down, meaning the baton is really the runner in the race. Is really we're just carrying it. When the baton passes the line, that's when whoever has the baton first, when they pass the line, is who wins. So the faster the baton can get moving. It's just like playing soccer or basketball. The ball's gonna always move faster than the person's. So once you can get the ball up the field or up the court, you do less work with your legs.
That's a good analogy. Interesting analogy. All right, so let me ask you this. I think I might know the answer, maybe, from what you said earlier. So now you are the active. Canada is watching you here. The hopes of Canada are on you, personally, Brendon. Do you know at this point? I don't think you do. Where your team is in the race? You don't know, eh? Or do you?
No, you don't. But by the time you get to the top of the curve, you have an idea of where you are. Because if you see somebody,
Gotcha.
You're behind. If you don't see anybody, you're in front.
If you don't see anybody, you're in front. That's a good piece of advice.
Yeah.
Now, what if I told you? I think it was Donovan Bailey said at this point he thinks Canada's got the race. I heard him say that, Brendon, on the coverage. He said when you get the stick, he says the race is over. Is it?
You know what?
I don't think so. There's still.
All right.
Now that being said, Glenroy, I heard him say, "Huh?"
I said let's play the track.
Okay, let's go.
Yeah.
All right, we're gonna. All right, this is Brendon. So let's watch him. Here we go. We'll get into all that. Here we go. So this is Brendon running. We're gonna pause it after you hand off. Ready? Here we go. Look at this man. What a picture that is.
So if you look at me, like if you speed it up like to that white line right there, if you put it to right at that white line, or
Okay,
a little bit.
One second.
After.
Keep going?
All right.
Or back?
A little bit more. Forward.
Still more?
Yeah, some more.
You want still more?
Yeah, a little bit more. You're going to see me look over. Right there. Perfect. So, go back. So you see, I looked over.
Yep.
And that's when you know
Go back a little bit?
You can go back a little, just to see when I'm looking over.
Oh, we went all the way back. That's okay, though. Watch this. Here we go. We can watch you run again. No worries.
So I get to right about here.
There you go.
Yeah. And I'm looking over. So this is when you know where you are in the race. So the race kind of unfolds. So this is where I said, all right, we basically won. Because now I know.
Olympic champions.
I'm not going to say that. I'm just saying that I know what Andre can do. And we're in front. Because that's why I looked over to see where the rest of the other teams are. So, like I said, the race does kind of unfold. And if I don't see anybody in front of me, then we're in a good position.
Yeah. I like your answer the best, I think, Brendon.
Yeah.
Like I said, I heard. So Donovan said, when you get the stick, race is over. Glenroy, I heard say, with 150 left, he thinks the race is over. But the point is, like you and Andre could still screw up this handoff.
Yeah, and we could, but the chances are very unlikely. Based on, and this is just a a data-driven answer. Me and Andre have had the least amount of bad handoffs over the last 10 years than any
There you
other
go.
combination. In
There you go.
Yeah, so we
So
might
the
have
value of practicing.
yeah, and the value of just consistency. So it's not even that we've practiced a lot in our early years, but because we continuously do the same thing over and over and over in our later years, we may not practice as much, but it's that reinforcement of doing the same thing over and over and over. Yeah.
Now, I guess we cannot leave, though, without you giving a shout-out to this. Talk about, Brendon, this Homo sapien who you just handed the stick to. This is a hell of a human being, not just physically, but like when you give him the stick now and he's got it clean, I think everyone says, well, not that he's physically dominant, I think. There's something going on with this guy mentally. He's clutch, whatever term you want to talk about.
Yeah.
Pressure tested. He's going to come through at the highest moments, I think. Well, what would you say about your teammate here?
You know what? That's what I'm saying. When I look over and I know he has a stick, there's very few people in the world that can run past him once he's in front, or even if he's beside you. It's very hard. And the people who could run past him were too far behind.
Yeah,
He's
going to deliver. Yeah, 100%. Let's watch it all just to get the gold medal.
Yeah. So Andre gets a stick. Once he gets in front, there's no looking back for him, and he's gonna go
Gold medal.
I tip my
champions.
hat to him all the time. He's one of the greatest in the sport.
He's one of the greatest of all time. Certainly in this country. I mean, but even there's few people that can just deliver constantly like this guy. Oh, the other thing I meant to say, I didn't even say this. Oh, I should have paused it 1 second sooner. But anyway, I was trying to set up the race, Brendon. You guys, the four of you, none of you advanced to the final of your respective individual races. There was kind of I'm going to say, a downcast feeling up to this point, maybe. And then you four guys pull this off. I mean, what can I say, Brendon? Olympic champion. I'll ask you just the cheesy question. How does that feel?
Yeah. You know, it's one of those things that you dream about for your life. And once it happens, you kind of don't know what to do, what to think, how to react. You just take it, and now you're Olympic champion. Your life has changed.
Unbelievable, man. All right, Brendon. That's a good way to almost conclude our interview, but we got a few minutes left here. Speaking with Brendon Rodney, Olympic champion in the 4x100. Brendon, I always end these interviews. First of all, thanks for your time. Like I began at the beginning by saying, there's really, and honestly, in terms of the totality of what you bring to this discussion, thanks for doing this. Now, the way we conclude all these interviews usually is by doing a little thing I like to call playing 10 questions. All right, so Brendon, if you have 10 minutes left of your time before we're done here, we'll play a little game. 10 questions with Olympic champion Brendon Rodney. You up for it?
All right, let's go.
This is the hardest part of the interview, Brendon. All right, all in good fun.
Ready.
Quick answers, whatever's the answer. All right, Brendon, question number 1. By the way, let me just say one more time. Olympic champion, gold medalist, Brendon Rodney. 10 questions. Here we go, 10 questions. Question number 1. Brendon, why is your nickname Bucky?
You know what? It's been from when I was younger. My teeth, I used to have buck teeth, so they used to just call me Bucky, and it just stuck. I got braces after, so they're not buck anymore, but yeah.
I didn't even know that would be the answer because I couldn't tell. So anyway, we went from, see how I do it? I call you an Olympic champion gold medalist in 1 second, and then when you say why they call you Bucky, it goes from the utmost of respect to Bucky that you had when you were a kid.
Yeah.
All right, that was question number 1. Question number 2, Brendon. What was the single worst or hardest course you took in university?
Ooh, I want to say statistics, maybe, or history. It's one of those two.
Statistics.
Yeah. Statistics really wasn't hard because I'm a math guy, but history was hard because I don't like reading.
Statistics or history?
Yeah.
I didn't do good in stats either, man.
I graduated with a 4.0, so even though they were my hardest classes, you know.
I told you, the man's a scholar and an Olympic champion. 4.0.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm going to drag you down again. I'm going to ask you another one of these questions.
That's all right.
What's your worst race? The worst race you ever had, and why? Question number 3.
I've had a few bad races, actually. You know, some races where I'm hurt or like I'm hurting and I go out there and run like 10.4 or like 21 flat. Yeah, I've had a few of them. Yeah.
21 flat's bad for this guy. All right,
Yeah.
question number 4. I know you're a fan of music, Brendon. If we were to look at your playlist here on this day, what's on the playlist today?
What was I listening to this morning? Dom Kennedy, Drake, some dancehall music.
Good Canadian boy.
Yeah.
There you go. All right, question number 5, Brendon. This is a question every single athlete gets asked, and we kind of talked about this. I do it as a joke, actually, for most athletes, but it's kind of applicable to you and what we were talking about earlier with the Linford Christies of the world and the Maurice Greens of the world and these people. Brendon, what is your 1-rep max bench press?
265 pounds.
2, you gave a distinct answer. We'll go with that.
260. 200.
265, yeah. Because some of these dudes could push a lot of weight, I think, in the bench press, even though they're not bench pressers. But like I said, I asked this as a joke, but it's interesting for.
Yeah, I'm not a big bench press guy, but like if you get me in like squats, cleans, deadlifts, oh yeah, I'm the man.
Okay, now speaking of being the man, this is another excellent question. I can't wait to hear what the answer to this is. All right, Brent, you're going to give me a time, okay? You got to run a 10K road race tomorrow. Gun to your head, you got to put forth your best possible time. Give me a ballpark. What's your time in a 10K road race?
All right, let me do some math in my head first. I got to know how 10K. So I got 1 mile in like 6 minutes. So if I'm gonna do 10K, so that's a mile and
yeah, but can you keep up that pace?
No. That's why I'm doing the math right now. It's probably gonna take me about an hour and 3 minutes.
He says an hour and 3 minutes.
Yeah.
Best possible. I'm fascinated. Anyway, we won't dwell on that.
Because I probably could do 2K in like 11 minutes. Yeah, okay. Somewhere around there.
That's the answer.
Yeah.
So it's all good. It's all good. All right, question number 7. I think I might know the answer to this one. Funniest ever teammate and why?
Funniest ever teammate. Gavin or Daniel Harper. Gavin Smelly or Daniel Harper, by far. Yeah, those guys.
Jerome was a funny guy. Isn't he a comedian?
No, he's not.
I thought he was actually a comedian. Oh,
nah.
I thought he was a comedian. Anyway, so those guys, how come they're what funniest teammate and why? So they're so funny. Why? How come?
Oh, those guys they're just funny people. Like everything's a joke to them, so they make everything funny. Those guys are definitely by far my 2 funniest teammates.
We only got 3 left, Brendon. Question number 8, and we're going to go back to the world of sports psychology. Not my area of training, not yours either, I don't think. But maybe you did it somewhere along the way. You did everything else. Maybe you did that too. We're going to delve into sports psychology. Can you share with us? Did you? This man's done everything. Anyway, the sports psychology question was, can you tell us what did Aaron Brown say to you guys before the 4x100 gold medal race, Paris Olympics?
He basically just said, we've had a lot of shitty performances, and the best way to, get rid of shit is to wipe it up, basically, and basically wipe people's ass on the track and beat them. So just go out there
So
and
we're getting it. This I
do
thought we
it.
were just going to do
That's basically what he
psychology. We're
told
getting
us.
into some
I
physiology
mean, but
too.
me and him had conversations prior to that too. Huh?
Good answer. All right, we got 2 left, and then we're done. Question number 9, second last question. Brendon, have you ever been to Albert's Real Jamaican Food on St. Clair West in Toronto?
No, I haven't.
No.
Yeah,
Next time you're here, you got to go, man.
I will.
It's in my neighborhood.
I'm gonna come back in like a week or so. I'll check it out.
Albert's Real Jamaican Food, St. Clair West, down the street from me. I recommend the stewed beef. That's what I recommend. All right, and Brendon, the last question. I thought it'd be a good way to end this one. You mentioned a few people already, maybe. If you look back on your career, Brendon, unbelievable career. Was there a single most influential coach? Or
Oh
person?
yeah, definitely. My college coach was definitely
named
Simon Hodnett. Yeah, so he was probably the most influential person on my career. Probably without him, I wouldn't be here right now. I probably would just be a regular guy working a job. So I tip my hat to him and I give thanks to him always. And he instilled a lot of life lessons just outside of the track. So I'm grateful for all that he's done for me. And if I could go back in time, I would tell him that.
A lovely answer, lovely sentiment. And on that note, the last thing I'll say, you mentioned you'd be a regular guy working a job. Brendon, you're absolutely not a regular guy working a job. Olympic gold medalist, all this academic credentials. And if you weren't here today, this interview would never happen, and we would not have had such an unbelievable opportunity to unpack everything about sprinting that we did. So, Brendon, I thank you very much.
Thank you very much as well for having me.
And in signing off, I will do so like I always do by saying, let's go Canada, support Canadian athletes.